Here's why Kody Brown's version of parenting looks more like sibling rivalry wrapped in self-importance. Kody Brown has never missed an opportunity to weaponize fatherhood, and his treatment of Gwen is merely the latest entry in a long-running catalog of punitive theatrics. According to Christine's account, he informed Gwen that he would not attend her engagement party, promptly reducing her to tears, and then delivered the kind of cold admonition favored by self-styled martyrs of paternal suffering. "Don't try to manipulate me with your tears." The declaration was not guidance nor concern, but simple retribution. The offense? In Season 18, Episode 9, during a conversation among Christine, Janelle, and several of the older children, the topic of meeting with Robin surfaced. Garrison declined the idea outright, and Gwen, accurately observing the pattern, remarked that Robin would likely resort to manipulation or tears. This, of course, constituted blasphemy against the family's resident paragon of innocence. And so, when Gwen cried in response to her father's rejection, Kody seized the chance to echo her own words as punishment, flexing his loyalty to Robin with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. His eventual attendance at the engagement party hardly redeems the behavior. The presence of a camera crew and the guarantee of a paycheck have long proven more compelling to him than any paternal obligation. It was simply an ideal scenario: collect compensation, preserve the appearance of involvement, and avoid revealing anything remotely personal. Given the couple's open disdain for the invasive nature of the show, one might almost sympathize, until remembering that this is, inconveniently, the job they continue to cash in on. The pattern is unmistakable to anyone familiar with the repertoire of narcissistic parenting. Emotional expressions from children are framed as manipulation. Emotional expressions from the parent are treated as sacred scripture. Kody's reactions are less reminiscent of a father than of a sulky older sibling determined to win the world's least flattering competition. His recent decision to tattle on Solomon for placing a phone in a pocket, followed by Robin's weary maternal response, only underscores how fully he has abdicated the role of an adult authority figure. This style of fatherhood by punishment extends well beyond Gwen's engagement. His selective attendance at major life events, including Logan's wedding, operates less as a parental choice and more as leverage. Participation becomes conditional, a tool to reward loyalty or punish dissent. And given how much of this family's history remains unpublicized, it is safe to assume these incidents are only the visible portion of a much larger pattern. In a family defined by its complexities, Kody still manages to distinguish himself. Unfortunately, it is rarely for anything resembling fatherhood. Are you someone who's noticed Kody Brown competes with his sons more than he connects with them? Kody Brown's appearance on Special Forces has been marketed as a touching ode to fatherhood, though only, it seems, to a very specific subset of his children. Whenever he speaks about his kids, the definition miraculously shrinks to exclude the majority of them. The emotional tributes appear reserved exclusively for the brood he shares with Robin, as if the original 13 never existed except as a footnote to his spiritual resume. The pattern is hard to ignore. Several of his adult children reportedly learned of his participation on the show only after the fact, a detail that tracks seamlessly with his ongoing talent for erasing them from the narrative. Yet in interviews, he wistfully muses that he would have loved to appear on the show with his two oldest sons. If that phrase were truly inclusive, it would point to Logan and Hunter, both of whom would outperform him with a level of competence and maturity he has spent years avoiding. Conveniently, Robin only has 2 sons, which makes his phrasing a mildly transparent attempt at rewriting the family tree. And then there's the claim that he didn't know he could bring someone with him, a line delivered with the kind of earnestness one usually reserves for bad infomercials. Robin, of course, would never allow her sons to sign up for anything that might muss a hair or trigger an emotion, so the excuse becomes doubly convenient. The performance continues off-screen. One son has already stated publicly that he didn't know his father was filming the show at all, further undermining the touching warrior dad narrative. The underlying hope seems obvious, that his televised struggle through an obstacle course will somehow restore the respect he has spent years squandering. Unfortunately for him, respect cannot be manufactured through boot camp pageantry, especially not for children who have already served in actual military roles. Several of his sons did precisely that, and unlike their father's foray into reality TV endurance cosplay, their service required discipline, accountability, and courage. His stint looks less like bonding and more like a late-in-life attempt to compete with people who long ago surpassed him. This competitive streak, masquerading as connection, reveals yet another uncomfortable truth. The original 13 were never going to be the intended audience for his redemption arc. If he cared about their perception, he would be on the phone offering apologies rather than retreating into televised reinvention. Instead, his behavior at a son's funeral reportedly widened the final divides, severing even the tenuous relationships that remained. One of his rare moments of honesty came when he admitted he only cares about his minor children, an admission that continues to age poorly each time he ignores one of them. The younger daughters, outside the favored household, remain largely forgotten, both in his life and in public conversations about the family. Their invisibility seems almost institutional at this point. As for the future, one can imagine the household dynamics when the youngest children eventually reach adulthood and no longer serve as his built-in justification for selective involvement. By then, he will be nearing retirement age, an era for which no one expects him to have prepared. And Robin's spending habits will likely make the financial situation as unforgiving as the emotional one. The two of them will likely sit in the quiet they created together, older and dissatisfied, clinging to the only children still willing to tolerate their orbit. And if Special Forces ever attempts to confront him with the son he keeps referencing obliquely without daring to name, the world will finally see whether this fatherhood storyline is something he can withstand or simply another challenge he hopes to outrun. Never mistake practiced movie star posturing for actual toughness, especially not here. A man sworn off a television show is suddenly compelled by a primal, almost medicinal need, the irresistible urge to watch a certain participant be humbled. And who could blame the impulse? Few televised moments offer the therapeutic power of seeing a chronically self-inflated figure have his face dunked into mud with the enthusiasm of a spa treatment gone vindictively wrong. A surprising number of emotional ailments seem to clear right up. To his credit, and much to the disappointment of those hoping for a rapid collapse, the man performed respectably in the physical challenges. Unfortunately, competence in a push-up is not a personality transplant. His demeanor remained as grating as ever, and the sideways glances from fellow competitors provided a running commentary all their own. His casual misogyny alone forecasted the obvious. Teamwork would not be his natural habitat. The upcoming hand-to-hand combat segment promises additional opportunities for Gravity, Mud, and perhaps other contestants to do what polite society no longer can. Realistically, he will likely endure longer than anyone would prefer, which, silver lining, ensures more televised reminders that bravado evaporates quickly when confronted with trained professionals who have lived far harsher realities than his curated theatrics. Physical fitness, after all, can only compensate so long for an ego that cannot tolerate taking orders from peers. The moment he's required to defer to another participant rather than the instructors, the fuse is practically pre-lit. Viewers have already witnessed the delightful spectacle of him attempting to coach someone, only to be shut down, forcefully and with vocabulary refreshingly free of euphemism, by a staff member unwilling to entertain his self-appointed authority. The universal fantasy, it seems, is the chance to hold his face in the mud while gripping that stubborn remnant of hair that clings to his scalp with the same desperation he brings to his tough guy persona. The cameras capture it beautifully, the practiced action movie stare, the studied jaw clench, the unmistakable sense that he once stood before a mirror rehearsing how to appear intimidating. One almost admires the dedication. Almost. Here's what no one wants to admit about Robin Brown's so-called moral compass. It only points where she needs it to. Robin Brown appears to measure her maternal excellence by a single gleaming yardstick. Whether her children remain sexually dormant until a wedding ring materializes. Few ambitions could be simpler, and yet she has managed to inflate this one into a full-scale household doctrine, complete with infantilization, isolation, and a level of control that would make a Victorian chaperone blush. This fixation traces back to her own internalized sermonizing about chastity, followed almost immediately, if her narrative timelines are to be believed, by her failure to uphold it. The result seems to be a lifelong blend of guilt and projection. Watching the older Brown children mature, leave the nest, and, scandal of scandals, engage in adult relationships without self-destructing must have been deeply inconvenient. Their successes, professional and personal, undermine her argument that sexual restraint is the sole path to moral and emotional stability. Thus, she clings to the one arena she can still regulate: the bodies and autonomy of her own children. Meanwhile, the fairy tale of her own chaste courtship with Kody strains credibility. A man does not routinely drive 5 hours each way, sleep over, and negotiate fiancé-level overnight rotations out of pure spiritual discipline. And that infamous engagement portrait, a masterpiece of unintentional confession, does not exactly radiate restraint. The official line insists on virtue. The visuals tell a less pious story. If one were feeling generous, it could be framed as Kody simply conducting reverent temple worship. Scripture can be remarkably flexible when needed. Robin's entire worldview is undergirded by a brand of gender essentialism in which women must be perpetually ladylike, silent in childbirth, and obedient in presentation. Conveniently, she also fits the aesthetic mold Kody seems to prefer, a contrast made all the clearer by his dwindling interest in his other wives. Her children are trained accordingly, deferential, worshipful, and emotionally fused with their stepfather to a degree that raises more questions than answers. Normal childhood ambivalence is suspiciously absent. Instead, they perform gratitude with the zeal of converts. Aurora, in particular, radiates the energy of someone who has been assigned a savior and instructed to thank him. The mythology becomes even more impressive when Robin applies her bespoke theology to marital status itself. She once articulated the belief that a woman remains married until she has sex with another man, a theological loophole so odd that it retroactively justifies her premarital relationship with Kody. By her own logic, they could not possibly have married until she was truly divorced, and consummation conveniently accomplished that. Nothing like rewriting doctrine mid-sentence to sanctify a preferred outcome. The emotional atmosphere in her household invites further scrutiny. The children's fragility, their anxious attachment, and their near-total dependence suggest a dynamic that extends far beyond strict parenting. Observers have long floated the possibility of a Munchausen-like pattern, psychological or emotional dependence, cultivated rather than addressed. Whether intentional or not, the result is the same: children whose identities orbit their mother's anxieties and validations. In the end, Robin's moral universe is remarkably compact. Premarital sex is the cardinal sin. Controlling her children's development is the prophylactic. Retroactive theological innovation is the cleanup. Everything else, emotional health, autonomy, basic adulthood, gets swept aside in service of the narrative. It is a small kingdom, but she rules it with unwavering conviction. Here's what no one seems willing to admit about Kody Brown's favorite PMS excuse. Kody Brown has never met a woman's emotion he couldn't immediately attribute to hormones. So naturally, he reached for the old, "It's your PMS" refrain when Christine dared to be uncomfortable around his friend. The same friend who helpfully suggested the church might accept Kody back if he would simply discard 3 wives. A perfectly rational boundary somehow became acting crazy, courtesy of Kody's enthusiastic gaslighting. The most stunning twist was Christine's willingness, at the time, to believe him. After all, she had researched the matter and concluded that women are emotional slaves to their bodies. A depressingly familiar refrain, but hearing it parroted within a family that claims progressive spiritual values makes it no less archaic. And then there's the collective silence. Not a single sister wife stepped in. Janelle literally walked away. But under Kody's carefully cultivated ecosystem of emotional scarcity, defending one another risks losing access to him altogether, and by extension, jeopardizing the children's relationship with their father. solidarity becomes a luxury no one is allowed to afford. The spectacle only grows more remarkable with the release of Christine's recent book, in which the "hormones made me do it" narrative is reinforced by invoking perimenopause. As if the wildly inappropriate comment from Kody's friend somehow required a medical explanation for justified anger. Apparently, even hindsight must bow to the church of Kody's infallibility. Rewatching the episode also exposes the curious arc of Janelle's involvement. First, she helpfully reignites the conflict by suggesting a visit with the very man Christine can't stand. Then she offers a breezy reminder that all wives must occasionally take their turn on Kody's hot seat while he dispenses homespun pseudoscience about women's emotional instability. Only when Kody begins generalizing PMS to all women does she finally find her feminist voice. Briefly, in the end, the entire scene plays like a case study in a patriarchal system so entrenched that those living inside it have normalized the absurd. One might even look forward to a future moment, perhaps on a grueling reality competition, when Kody's bluster encounters a force he can't dismiss as hormonal. Nothing derails the emotional tone of an episode faster than their painfully scripted flirting. The show has reached an impressive milestone. It has managed to drive away viewers not through overexposure or franchise fatigue, but through the sheer gravitational pull of discomfort emanating from Kody and Robin Brown. After the latest episode, it becomes abundantly clear that the franchise isn't the problem. They are. A series centered solely on the ex-wives and their children would be instantly more compelling. Mary radiates an ease and happiness that actually feels human. Janelle continues to be the quietly formidable backbone she has always been. And Christine, mercifully dialing down last season's overzealous David-era enthusiasm, has once again become thoroughly endearing. Their joy is unforced, their interactions natural, and their screen presence effortlessly engaging. Then the camera shifts to Kody and Robin, and the atmosphere collapses. Every moment between them lands with the sincerity of a rehearsal conducted 5 minutes before filming. Their scenes are stiff, unnatural, and painfully performative. Two people pretending they haven't been functioning as a monogamous couple for a decade, and unburdened by any plural family obligations for at least half that time. And yet, somehow, they remain awkward together, as though the script forgot to give them chemistry. Their attempts at flirtation only deepen the discomfort. The faux dirty talk achieves the rare feat of making television feel like a trapped elevator. Stifling, inescapable, and best avoided altogether. Kody's bizarre vocalizations and theatrical tongue-wagging do not suggest seduction so much as a man unaware of the mirror. Robin, presented as the ostensible romantic counterbalance, fares no better. Her on-camera presence is a study in avoidance, her eyes darting everywhere but toward the interviewer, as though attempting to distance herself from her own lines. If this is acting, it is of the please fast-forward variety. Yet, for all the collective yearning for a spin-off featuring only the original wives and their grown children, the network has no incentive to grant it. The formula demands villains, or at least characters so universally aggravating that viewers remain unable to look away. Happiness is not, and has never been, the channel's preferred currency. Outrage, disgust, and secondhand embarrassment generate far more conversation, and conversation, however nauseated, sustains ratings. Thus, the audience is left with an uncomfortable truth. The very scenes that make the skin crawl are the ones the network will continue to foreground. After all, people are still talking about them, and for reality television, that is the only metric that matters. After refusing to accompany his daughter to surgery, after belittling her for needing medical care in the first place, after announcing to his wife and daughter that he must remain with his family, as though she somehow didn't qualify, after implying a high schooler should face major surgery alone, after all of that spectacular paternal dereliction, there came one modest request. She woke in agony and asked to speak to her father by phone. She didn't ask for a grand gesture, a last-minute flight, or even an apology. She asked for a song, the bare minimum of human decency wrapped in a lullaby. He declined, not even with an excuse worthy of the moment, simply, "I don't feel like it." Few sentences have ever captured such distilled disdain. The cruelty was breathtaking in the worst possible way. A parent choosing apathy at the precise moment his child's pain should have mattered most. This refusal required no sacrifice from him, nor from the favored household he so anxiously shields. Yet even this microscopic effort was apparently too extravagant. The pattern is familiar. Mistreat the children when displeased with their mothers, then masquerade as the devoted patriarch elsewhere. Consider the contrast. He had recently been seen carrying another child to bed during a panic attack, weeping over the unbearable hardship of going 6 days without seeing her. 6 days. Meanwhile, his recovering daughter's plea for comfort was waved off like an inconvenient reminder of obligations he'd rather shed. The conclusion writes itself. The rejection wasn't apathy, it was punishment. Her decision to proceed with necessary surgery without bending to his demands was, in his mind, an act of defiance. And defiance, in his world, deserves pain. The idea is chilling, yet entirely consistent with his behavior. Only someone profoundly detached from ordinary parental instinct could respond to a child's suffering with such deliberate coldness. The lingering question is the only one worth asking: why? What compels a father to repeatedly, almost ritualistically, wound his own children? He rails, he withholds, he distances, yet never addresses the wreckage he creates. This is the true storyline long overdue for examination. His children seem to represent not themselves, but the life he now resents. History, commitments, and wives no longer convenient to the new narrative. The loathing transfers seamlessly onto them, and the result is behavior that edges disturbingly close to outright hostility. It is a bleak portrait, one man so committed to reinvention that he discards anyone who reflects the past he wishes to escape. And nothing exposes that cruelty more acutely than the moment he refused a simple song. Subscribe for more video.